Hey everyone, and welcome to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you all are having a fabulous week so far. Um, all right, so let's get into our topic today. Well, before we get into our topic, let's take one look back at what we talked about the last time we were together. Um, Last time we talked about things that managers should not say or do to their employees. So let's do a quick recap because there were a lot. One was act like it's incredibly hard to say good morning. Two, refuse to get their hands dirty. Three, compare team members. Four, bring an attitude to work. Five, communicate with the team solely through emails or chat. Um, Six, shut the door, like keep the door open, both physically and virtually. Eight, have a favorite employee, right? Nine, schedule a meeting over lunch. Like, don't do that. 10, tell someone that you need to be able to do more with less. 11, see your team's talents as threats. 12, tell someone on your team that you simply don't have time right now. And 13, take all the credit. All right. So if you missed that episode, you can always go back and take a listen, or you can watch on YouTube. All right. So today we're going to talk about burnout. Burnout is real. If you work long enough in this life, it will happen. It will happen to all of us at some point. And what I hope to be able to do today is to just help you first, like recognize if you might be heading towards burnout. And then secondly, give you some tools that can help you if you're already there or before you get to a place of feeling like you're burnt out. So let's start with what is burnout? So first, you sort of have to know what it looks like, right, in order for you to actually know that you might be getting close to it or you're experiencing it. Burnout is recognized as a break between what people are and what they have to do. And it's typically experienced as emotional exhaustion or depersonalization. So, right? Yeah. You think about like you may feel tired, you may feel drained, you may feel like you just don't want to push forward. All like signs or feelings of what burnout looks like. And burnout happens, right? There are a lot of people probably currently today that are experiencing some type of burnout in the workplace. It tends to be a widespread thing that a lot of times people don't talk about. The impact of like an increasing workload or perceived lack of control, or someone, wanting to feel like, like job security. A lot of these things, they're going to ultimately lead to, reduced productivity, poor physical and mental health, and also high turnover. So let's start with looking at friends. What does it look like, right? So these are just some examples, hopes of, helping you to discover or determine if you might be going through this. So if you look at, from a job demand standpoint, right, it's usually that you might feel like your job and what you're being asked to do, it exceeds what you're humanly capable of doing. It's like 1 week, do this, Kyra. The next week, oh, Kyra, I was wondering if you could, would you be able to take on this additional project? And so, you just keep piling on projects. Or you think about when people leave jobs, people leave, that work has to be redistributed. Say you're one of the lucky people who gets asked to, help out with the transition. Also, by the way, anytime you hear, we're going to need you to step in during the transition. Yeah. Always sort of means that you're going to end up doing this project for a really long time. So that's what it looks like from a job demand standpoint. There's more things being added to your plate. You're constantly being asked to do more, and often to do more with less, and to figure out how to do it, how to keep the train moving, how to keep moving the ball down the field, all those analogies. All right. So the second thing is, which is something that is really important to call out, and I see this in a lot of corporate workplaces, it's role conflict. It's this feeling of people not understanding what is the expectation of what they're supposed to do. It shows up in different forms, right? You either have the person who, from the example I just gave, someone has transitioned. This person has been given part of their work, maybe continues to get small pieces of somebody else's work, but they also have a role that they already were doing. And so you don't have control because you're under pressure to do the things that the manager has asked you to do, but then you also have a job that you were hired to do. And so you can understand how that could cause conflict, that could cause someone to feel unnecessary pressure. So another example is when you have people in roles, and I'm going to use this example because this is one that used to always be an issue at several jobs for me, was you'd always have like a marketing team that did marketing, work, sort of some of the traditional like digital marketing, ad placement, creative, you had a marketing team with those capabilities. And then you'd have like a product team who were product development people, product development managers who were responsible for launching, creating new products, but then somehow they'd end up with a title that was very similar of product marketing. And then you'd have like a whole product team that was being called marketing. And you could see how that's confusing, and then you've got them thinking about job things that the marketers, the traditional marketing team does, and them like having, feedback and coming to the table with like plans and things of that nature, where it's like, well, who's doing what? So I think that you can see role conflict show up in those ways where, people are confused. They don't know what to do. And oftentimes at both of those jobs where we had this like sort of like these titles for people and they weren't really doing the job, but they had the title. So they assumed that some of those things were their responsibilities or that they had a say-so in those things. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're the marketer, you're working with the product manager to, create like the go-to-market strategy, the plan, like, yes. But when let's just be real, when anyone has the word marketing in their title, then they have like, you have given them a level of like, oh, I'm the expert in marketing. And let's be real. We all know, as anybody out there listening, watching, if you're a marketer, you know that everybody thinks that they could do marketing. Anybody who's got a LinkedIn account or so they spend any amount of time on social media, they're like a social media genius. They can tell you what to do, how you should do it, where to place it, all that stuff. Okay. So I digress. All right. So just think about role conflict is also, like I said, just to close that one out. There's a perceived lack of control because you don't necessarily have control over like, this is my job and this is the thing I'm supposed to be responsible for and the thing that I'm supposed to do. Then also just feeling that unnecessary pressure from several people. It also leads to, people, you having these demands that basically compete with each other. So you've got all these extra demands on you. And then you're trying to figure out how to prioritize, right? And guess what? You really need to have good managers are in play. You have a good leader, good manager, then generally you're not heading towards burnout in this type of conflict because that manager is there to help you. All right. Up next is insufficient reward and lack of recognition for the work. When you work really hard, as we all know, when you work really hard and you put your best foot forward and to do a good job, you care about the work that you do. When you don't get any recognition, it feels like your work and you are both being devalued. And that is something that can also lead to burnout because you just get tired. After a while, you get tired. It's like, I'm doing all these things. I'm going out of my way to make sure that, I create good work. I'm doing my part. I'm helping, towards the larger goals. And you do all that. And guess what? Nobody cares. Your manager doesn't say, good job, Jim. Penny, good job. I don't know where Penny came from, but they don't say, good job. They don't take the time to look at your work and see how it actually made a difference. Now, some of you may be saying, well, you could make sure that you get that in front of them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those things. You should. One thing that I always make a point to do is making sure as a manager that my team has a tool in place where they can report wins. They can report things for the week, things that have happened that are good. And I think that helps to keep me in the know of what's important and what's happening for them. And then also it helps me to be able to communicate that up to other leaders and with my peers and then also my manager. So I just think, you just have to put tools and processes in place for people to be able to celebrate their wins. So they do feel valued and they do feel like they are playing a key role in growing the business. All right. So the next thing that could drive and play a factor in burnout is lack of support. Just really having, lack of support from whether it be a manager, team, or, I think that also leads to people feeling burnout because, again, it's very much like the one above where you're putting in the work, you're doing really good work to help the company grow. You're helping the company get and meet its goals, get to and meet its goals, and you're not getting the same support in return, whether that be you feeling like, you need some external help, you feeling like you need to hire someone, right? You need more team members, whether you just are feeling like you can't go to your manager and just say, hey, actually just wanted to talk about my workload, I'm feeling somewhat burnt out, and I think all those things are important. And when people don't feel like they have that support, it will lead to feelings of despair, which ultimately will lead to burnout. All right. And then the last one is work perceived as unfair or inequitable. Kind of what we just talked about up top, where we talked about job demands. This is kind of caused by the effort reward imbalance. Again, you're putting in all this effort, but you're not seeing any reward from it. And you may see other people, who might do less. People who might do less, who get more of the, I guess, rewards, right? Feels like they're always the ones getting called out, the ones who sort of getting credit, and it happens. Trust me, it does happen. And I only use these examples because, I've seen these things play out over my career. And it is a real thing, when you feel like you're carrying a bulk of the load and there are other people who are not, who seem to be, let's just call it skating by. It is really hard. I have an example. There was a person on my team who was like a senior leader like myself, and they were never responsible for like any strategy though. And I remember we had these planning like strategy sessions, and this person was just sort of like sitting in the meeting, smiling. And I remember just asking the question, I'm like, yeah, but like, what is your strategy for doing X? And, they were like, well, that's one of the things we really need to focus on. We need to look at, we're going to, just all this like gobbledygook, where I was just like, but that's not what I asked you. What I asked is, what is your strategy? I mean, we've had this conversation, and it wasn't the first time that I'd asked that person. We'd had this conversation like several times where, I was like, well, here's a tool that you can use if you're trying to try not to get all the way to, y'all can see I'm trying to talk around this. Try not to give the exact examples, because anybody who knows me, if I get real close, they're going to know exactly who it is. But I had given this person like a tool, because this person came in and was managing an area that I used to manage. And when I was managing it, I was asked to do a strategy. And then when this person came in, all of a sudden he wasn't asked to do the strategy, and they didn't understand that. So you could certainly understand where it's like, I'm being, certain other people are showing up to the planning strategy meeting, being asked to produce strategy, and this person's just over here just producing, just being an executor, but an executor with a senior level title. Okay. Yes, still triggered by that moment. But all right, so let's now talk about like, how does burnout appear, like for you, right? So we know things that can lead up to potentially causing it, but then what does it look like? What does it feel like for you? So just it could lead to like from a feeling standpoint, you could feel tired, you could feel irritable, you might be distracted. Also, you could feel incompetent because of certain things like, someone giving you way too many responsibilities and not helping you to determine or to prioritize what's most important for you in the role that you're in today. So you may feel like, well, I can't do anything right because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. From the physical standpoint, you could have, body pain, muscle aches. You could have increased or reduced appetite. You could see a change in, your weight. I mean, it's just all these things like work together, and they could cause you some physical harm as well. From an emotional standpoint, you could feel trapped, hopeless, or even depressed. And then I think from like a mental standpoint, you may not be able to concentrate. You may not be able to make decisions because you've got so many things going on that, you just are feeling, stuck in this place. So those are just some feelings and physical and mental stressors that can manifest in your body, in you, if you are going through burnout. All right. So now we know, we know what some things what it looks like. We know some ways that might affect you from your physical and mental being. And then also just inside of the workplace, right? Say you're in the workplace. And I'm going to say this now because you might actually be going through burnout, may not even be realizing it, right? So just some things to look out, right? You might be showing up late to work, whether you whether you're physically going to an office or you say you have to be on virtual, you work from home, you have to be online at 8 and you get up right at 7:55, enough time to brush your teeth, roll downstairs, roll, into your office to work. Not showing up. Also having reduced goals, aspirations, or your commitment levels change. You're just going to do enough to get by. Also increased sarcasm. I'm sarcastic by in every day, but I do think when you get to a place where you're just tired, your sarcasm levels increase. Also poor treatment of others. You're just not in it anymore. So you may tend to treat other people differently. Also making careless mistakes. We talked about above, you may not, want to make decisions, or you might have muddled thinking, but really making careless mistakes that you wouldn't normally make. And then another thing is being non-collaborative. I don't really want to do this anymore. So you kind of just shy away from, any opportunities really to collaborate with other people. All right. So now that we have talked about burnout, what it looks like, some of its effects on you, let's talk about some ways that you might prevent it. So a couple of areas, right? So let's look at workload. So when your workload and capacity, right? So when your workload matches the capacity that you have during the day, when those things are in balance, you've got it. But if those things are not in balance, what can happen, right? You can feel trapped, you can feel swamped, you can feel just overwhelmed. But when those things are in balance, it is possible to get the work done and to find time to do other things that you like professional development. It's possible for you to get rest. It's possible for you to leave work on time and do something that you like to do, to have a life, right? So think about these things as it relates to the workload, right? Planning your work. Do you know what work you have, coming? Do you know what the next week is going to look like? Are you able to map that out for yourself? I think it's really important to, really keep your own to-do list, your own, however it is that you keep it, whether it's a online, platform online, you do it old school with paper and pen, a calendar, whatever, but to just really try to plan and look at deadlines and then plan your work accordingly so that you know what you're able to take on. Also delegating tasks. If you are able, if you're in a place where there are tasks that you can delegate to other people on the team to help you with, I know it's hard, and I know it's especially hard a lot of times for women, because we want to do everything. We want to be no, I got it, I can take it. But you know what? Delegation is your best friend, can be your best friend. Okay, so another thing is say no. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what? Actually, I can't take that on right now. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to draw a line in the sand. That's called setting a boundary, my friend. And sometimes it's okay for you to do that. And then the last thing is letting go of perfection. Sometimes, producing a perfect piece of work is not required. Sometimes good enough is all that's needed. I'm saying that and raising my hand because I had to learn that. Like I would always be like, no, 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 I've gotta, I have to like check it 1,000 times, gotta make sure it's like perfect. And you know what? It's not always gonna be perfect. I mean, at least, you know what, because if perfect's probably you're never gonna reach that level because you have these, we have high standards, right? So you have to just get it to a standard that is good enough. And then I always say, put it out there and you can optimize. You can always make changes to something. All right. So the next thing is control. Feeling out of control, a lack of autonomy, and inadequate resources, like all those impact your ability to succeed at what you're doing, and they can contribute to burnout. So really just thinking about ways that you can regain control for yourself. So thinking about, like, here's an example. Like if you get an email from your manager, late at night or over the weekend, do you feel like you have to answer it? I was leaving that moment there for you all to answer. Do you feel like it? I mean, so a lot of people, and there was a time in my career where I would have answered an email. Now I won't answer an email because it's like, why are you even emailing me over the weekend? Like, why? How about you just write yourself a note and then send it on Monday? Why don't you write yourself a note, send it on Monday? So I think in moments like this, you have to consider, like, how can you regain control, right? Agree on the time, talk to your manager and say, you know what? I just want you to know, when you send emails on the weekend, I'm not going to respond to them, right? You don't expect me to respond because I'm not going to. And because my manager today, like my manager will send notes sometimes, like say you're off like on a Monday. He might send a note on Monday, but he'll say, hey, I'm not sending this because I want you to answer or do anything. I honestly just thought of it and it didn't want to forget to tell you tomorrow. So I think it's all in the communication of how the person communicates with you. And even if they send the email over the weekend and they're like, hey, don't do anything with this, I don't expect you to read it, whatever. But I know that's also like a conversation that can be had, because I think a lot of times if you've got your email on your phone and you tend to look at it, if it pops up, you're going to look at it. I mean, that's just what it is. And then for a lot of people, they're going to think about it and think about, like, depending on the type of email it was. So just figuring out ways that you can give yourself as much control in that playing field and make you feel comfortable is important. All right. Then the next thing is community. So community is essential to feeling supported. While we don't always choose the people we work with, you can, obviously spend time nurturing and strengthening those connections with your coworkers and even your manager. So I think having a positive group morale, where you feel like a team, you feel like you can rely on each other. I mean, that is definitely going to reduce the likelihood of you burning out, because you know that you're all in it together. All right. The next thing is fairness. A sense of fairness at work can be helped by feeling, obviously valued and recognized for the contributions you make. So let it be known that you would like to be mentioned as a contributor or being involved in presenting, like, team successes. So just finding your own place in your way to ensure that your voice has a place. Like I always tell people, you should always have a point of view. You should always come, with some thoughts on how you see things. All right, the next thing is task balancing. Geez whiz, a word that you say all the time, balancing all the time. And then it all of a sudden sounded like, what? So after, this is just something, we talked about like earlier, right? Where we talked about planning, just figuring out like what tasks can be done, right? What tasks should be done daily? What should be done weekly? What are things that need to be done monthly? I think outlining that. So I think, yes, you'll have to do a little work on the upfront to just ensure that, like, you're thinking about the things that you're thinking about, the things that need to be put together, the things that what your normal work week looks like, your month. I mean, sometimes you have to plan ahead. I think for you to feel sort of like, I mean, nobody's in control. Like, you're not going to be in control all the time. But if you want to have some, some control, I think a lot of times you have to really have to plan ahead, and you have to think about what does my month look like? So what does April look like for me? What am I doing? What kind of meetings do I have? What projects are due this month? So just putting all that stuff out there and thinking about the steps that you need to take to accomplish those things. All right. And then mental and physical breaks. Those are the last things. You have to walk away. You have to stop. If you are someone, if you go and you're like, I'm going to get a coffee, get a coffee. Don't check your phone while you're standing in the line. Don't go get lunch and then, be looking at your phone the whole time while you're eating lunch. I mean, take a minute, take a walk at lunch, walk around your neighborhood if you're at home, walk around the block if you're at work, talk to a friend, run an errand, do something that allows for you, meditate, do something that allows for you to take that mental break. And then on the physical side, get up and stretch, go walk, stretch. If you have a lunch break where you might be able to go outside and do something, or you might be able to go work out, those things really will help to reduce stress, reduce the feelings of anxiousness. And they'll really help you with resetting and regaining focus. Okay. That was a lot. It felt like a lot. But also when I'm doing these solo episodes, I feel like I'm just talking a lot. It's a whole lot of Kyra talking. All right. So we talked about a lot of things today. So we talked about really discovering, identifying what burnout is and what it looks like and what it can look like in your life. And then also how it can show up in your physical and mental well-being. We also talked about some ways that it can stress and burnout in the workplace, how it can manifest. And then we closed with some things that you could do to prevent burnout. If you're there, some things that you might be able to start doing. If you're teetering, some things that you might be able to do. So I'm gonna quickly recap on the things that you can do to prevent. So one was, workload, balancing your workload. Two was finding ways to regain control. Three was embracing your community. Four was having a sense of fairness. Just making sure that, the workplace feels fair, that you're valued and you're recognized and from your role, and that you also have a voice. The next one is task balancing, figuring out how to plan ahead, how to plan out your tasks for the month. And then last was mental and physical breaks. I don't know about you, but I do notice this, and you probably, if you listen to me, if you listen to the show, you probably notice that, I always get halfway through on a count, and then I'm like, I lost my count, because I generally have notes that I'm looking at. Sometimes they may or may not be numbered, and then I lose count when I'm talking. So that's me. That's my trait. Okay. All right. So before I go, I want to say thank you to everyone today for stopping in, for spending some time with me. If you want to know more about Glow Up Gyrl, you can head over to the website, glowupgirl.com. You can access previous podcast episodes, resources. And if you're someone out there, you're listening, and you're like, this message is resonating with me, and you just maybe want to chat about where you are in your career, I'm here. I'm here for that. You can go to the website, glowupgirl.com, and you can check out the career coaching section. And, you can set up a quick meet and greet call with me. We can talk about where you are, what you hope to accomplish, and how maybe I can help you get there. There's also a really fun quiz that is focused on, helping you determine one of three things. I'm happy. I'm finding purpose in my career. I'm ready to elevate. What do I need to do next? 2, I'm just okay. Not sure I'm finding purpose or if I'll ever elevate here. And 3, no, thank you, ma'am. It's time for me to go. I need to do something different. So I am here definitely to help you with that. And I've got various couple programs, one program, and then also just some one-on-one coaching opportunities where if you're just like, hey, I just need some advice this week. I don't need a program. Just want to spend like an hour talking about this particular issue. I've got that for you too. So also, if you want to email me, you can email me at hello@glowupgirl.com. Well, that was fun. That was that was fun. So glad to be back with you all again. So I will see you all next week. Until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.